Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Naboxid, and as you can tell by the title below, I am reviewing Distant Worlds, which was a symphonic concert of Final Fantasy music. Which means, more Nobu Matsu! So, the show itself was actually really good. I've been to Video Games Live a few times, so compared to that, the crowd for Distant Worlds was a lot more along the lines of a traditional symphony crowd. If you've ever been to both shows, you know that Video Games Live has more of a relaxed atmosphere. Tommy Tallarico encourages people to cheer for their favorites, and he treats it more like a rock concert sort of deal. But with Distant Worlds, it was, like I said, much more of a traditional symphonic event. No, not that it's a bad thing or anything. It's just it was just different from what I've normally seen. So we started off the night with Prelude, which I'm sure you all know the piano bit that starts at the beginning. And they had the choir do some vocalizing, so that was actually a nice touch. It was very well done. Oh, I should point out that in the description I'm going to include the track list of all the songs, because it's been a week now, and I'm only now being able to do my review. So some of them I'm not going to remember as well. So you can take a look down below, and you'll see what was played, and I'm sure you can YouTube it and see for yourself whether you like it or not. So moving on from the Prelude, you have Final Fantasy VIII, Liberi Fatali. Now that one is actually pretty well known. A lot of people will remember that because a lot of people who are Final Fantasy fans, they often point to 8 as their favorite soundtrack, which is a shame because these are people who probably haven't played 6. So I do recommend you play 6 because the soundtrack is phenomenal to that, if you have not played it yet. But yeah, Liberi Fatali was one of the better ones that was performed tonight. They did a 15-second victory theme. Ba 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 ba. I remember going to this show a couple years ago, so they did the same thing, so I kind of knew to expect that one. Another of my top ones was one that, well, I was actually able to get a hold of the list beforehand, so I was able to look up some of these songs, and Final Fantasy X Zanarkand was one of the top 5 songs of the night. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that one. And they had videos for all of these. So, like, they had a big screen, and they had videos playing throughout. So yeah, the Zanarkand was actually one of the, like I said, it was one of my top 5 of the night. Next up, that I'm going to touch on is Don't Be Afraid from Final Fantasy VIII. I'm skipping over Not Alone from 9 because that's one that has kind of faded into the back of my head. So getting on to Don't Be Afraid, the orchestra actually waited for a random battle to start before kicking in the orchestra, which actually got a really good laugh from the audience. So that one was followed up by Phantom Forest. Phantom Forest was the first of 3 from Final Fantasy VI, which is my favorite overall soundtrack of video games. And this one was actually requested by Nobu Matsu because of the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy. It's been 25 years since the first one came out. As was Battle of the Four Fiends from Final Fantasy IV. So I'm going to point out that this concert, they covered every Final Fantasy from Final Fantasy IV up to Final Fantasy XIII. So they made sure they went out of the way to touch on each game in that set at least once, along with of course the Prelude, which is in every game, and they did a couple of medleys. So Final Fantasy VI and IV, like I said, Phantom Force and Battle with the Four Fiends were on there. Of course, a Final Fantasy concert without Aeris' theme would be a major oversight. That's a staple of Final Fantasy music, let's face it. Anyone who's played Final Fantasy VII is going to remember Sephiroth coming from up above down to kill Aeris. So, how could you really not perform that one? Let's see. Final Fantasy XII, they did the Dalmasca Estersand. That one was a good one, but I wouldn't place it in my top 5 of the night. But that said, it did stand out as actually a pretty good one. And before the intermission, they did the Chocobo Medley for 2012, so that, because with all the Chocobo themes that they have, you know that they have to touch on that, as they did for the battles later on. And that was pretty standard. There's nothing overtly special about it. It's basically what you would expect. After they came back from the intermission, they had the opening bombing mission from Final Fantasy VII. And once again, I'm pretty sure anyone who became a fan of Final Fantasy VII, or who started playing Final Fantasy because of 7, you'll likely remember the opening where you have Cloud jumping off the train and fighting the 2 soldiers from Shenra. Basically another standard one, what you would expect, you know, nothing overtly special. And then we get to the next Final Fantasy VI track, Dancing Mad. They actually had the organ for Dancing Mad. This one got its own part because they did a poll of what the favorite battle themes were, and Dancing Mad was the top vote getter. So they had an organ on stage, they had a pretty good organ player to take it, so that was actually pretty special. I looked it up, they actually had a battle between Terra and Kefka from Dissidia. So they had the Dissidia battle on the screen where Kefka won, because of course it's Dancing Mad, you have to have Kefka win. But yeah, that was up near the top. Let's see. They did the next 3 tracks were from Final Fantasy 11 and 13. Vana'Diel March, The Promise, and Blinded by the Light. These are 3 that, again, most of you probably know that I haven't played these ones, so they really did not stand out. Not that there was anything bad with them, it's just, again, a lot of the more special ones for me were at the beginning. You know, the second half did have a few special ones, just that a lot of the more memorable stuff for me took part in the first half. So you then had the main theme from Final Fantasy V, and the Final Fantasy Battle and Victory Theme Medley. What they did was they did Battle on the Big Bridge, Fight with Seymour, and Those Who Fight from 5, 10, and 7, respectively. So that was an interesting medley. I would prefer this one over the Chocobo Medley, just because it had a lot more oomph in it. But then again, that's to be expected. You know, you're going to have your battles, so I think that one was a little more fun to me. And of course, they saved my favorite part for the final billing on the show, Terra's theme. Once again, go back to my top 5 list. This one ranked number 2, and I figured going in that this would be my top track of the night, and it was just as expected. A lot of childhood memories coming up for me on this one. So yeah, this one was really special for me. So to hear Terra's theme, it's like, yes. They did come back and do an encore. They did One Winged Angel. And this is something that, okay, I'm going to start to get into what, I'm going to start, this one frustrated me, not because it was a bad song, because I like One Winged Angel. What set me off was when I went to Distant Worlds a couple years ago, I went with strep throat. So I had sore throat, and they had the fans be the choir a couple years ago. And of course, with my having strep throat, I could not join in. This year, with my throat being A-okay, they had a choir. I know it's not their fault, but this just annoys me. The one time I actually could have taken part, and they have a choir. So that's generally more of a track-by-track analysis. I would have changed around the selection maybe a little bit. Like I said, Final Fantasy IV, if you're going to pick, if I was picking from Final Fantasy IV, I would have gone with Prologue or the world map theme. And because I find that generally the map theme is usually among the better ones for most of the Final Fantasy series. And with Final Fantasy VI, there are a few songs. This is another thing. Last time, they had the opera scene. And I would have picked that over Phantom Force. Now, I'm not meaning to hate on Nobu's choices or anything. They are his music, and he should be allowed to have a little bit of a say. And I'm not disputing that. Nor am I disputing that they should cover each game, which obviously it makes logical sense. But I really feel that the opera scene makes it unique to actually have featured singers come out on stage and to do that. It's something that's fairly unique for video games, and it's something where I like to say up yours to people who say that, oh, video games don't have any culture to them. They have their own opera scene. Stick that up your pipe. So anyway, I'd give this show an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It was well worth the money that I spent for it. But like I said, it's really just the song selection I felt could have been a bit better. And I guess just certain things that I guess you can't really hold them responsible for, but I'm basing this on how much I enjoyed the show. And the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra was spot on this. They did a perfect show for what they were given. And with that said, I do have a bit of an extra bit to comment on. I would like to thank each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. I have now hit 100 subscribers. Yay! So I would like to take the time to thank each and every one of you for clicking that subscribe button, whether you've met me in person or you've come across my channel somehow. A lot of you have come around because of Chrono Remix Video 3. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch my videos and subscribe to my channel and thinking that much of me. So here's to another 100.